Welcome back, idiots. Today, we have a great episode for you. We discuss humor, comedy, laughter. What even makes something funny? Like, seriously, have you ever thought about that? We also get into how weird laughter is. Like, as a physiological response, is it not weird that we laugh? Like, and people get in big rooms and laugh together? Fucking mind-blowing. Anyway, we also discuss intelligence. What does it mean to be intelligent? Is Theo Von intelligent? I don't know. Anyway, stick with us. As always, towards the end, we sort of distill the things. Enjoy. Peace. Goodbye. You're a big fan of comedy. I'm a big fan of comedy. To you, what makes something funny to you?
What is something funny to me?
Well, what makes something
Oh,
funny
what makes something
to
funny?
you?
Oh,
Yeah.
man. I really like observational humor, actually, when a comedian is able to sort of, just nitpick at something and then sort of like get everyone on board with this sort of perspective that they have on this observation that they made, but they're able to do it in a way that is just hilarious. That's really funny. I also like stories, comedians that do story style humor. I really like Ricky Gervais, Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr, Patrice O'Neill, Andrew Schultz. Those are probably like my top five, I would say, all time
Cat Williams?
comedians. Oh yeah, fuck, Cat Williams is good to go too. Yeah, Cat Williams is amazing. He's like this genius joke writer. He's able to sort of bring like all of these jokes together and make them all mesh into like some sort of story with some sort of nice conclusion at the end. He's really good at piecing all the jokes together.
I think I have an overlap with you. I find a lot of those things funny as well, but they're not the only ways that you can make jokes or do comedy or do humor, right? And so, like, what is it about that? Like, so you mentioned observational, which to me, the observational stuff is typically about highlighting contradictions that might exist, or different, yeah, like you mentioned, ways of looking at something. So different lenses to look at something through, or different ways to perceive it. So I think all of that's valid in there. But what about like the element of truth? Like that's what I find is when a joke is really, really funny, there's an element of truth. And they either exaggerate or under exaggerate or play it off in some different way. But truth definitely plays a part in that. And then on top of that, I think all of the people you mentioned might have a certain bias towards a certain kind of humor. Would you say that that's the case? Like you definitely find, I don't know, more of that like satire, more of that contradiction exposing kind of darker humor side of things. I know I do personally.
Yeah, to be honest, Ruse, I never actually thought about it until you asked me right now why I like all of these comics. And I'm just realizing now that all five comics I mentioned, they do that, right? They expose these contradictions and they expose like these absurd things that occur in society. Like Patrice O'Neill, for example, his take on the way like your wife or your girlfriend acts or the things that they would say, the way he exposes women's behavior is really funny. I love how Patrice lays it out. He's a genius at that. And then Bill Burr, he just exposes everybody, right? Ricky Gervais too. He
Yeah, I agree.
exposes religion. He exposes the trans, the LGBT community. Ricky Gervais recently had a special, and he wasn't even making jokes per se. He was just saying what the
It's
LGBT.
like a documentary.
Yeah, all he did was say what the LGBT community says, and people were laughing hysterically. Just the way he delivered it. When I can't do the bit. I'm not gonna try to do the bit, but when he's like said, oh, so nowadays women can have cocks, right? Or yeah, I think it was, yeah, women can have cocks, and then and then and then someone would say, oh, like she has a nice cock or something, right? And he's like, it's his cock. It's his cock, you fucking bigot. And that's the joke. And it's
That's the bit.
exactly
Yeah.
what the LGBT plus Q whatever community says, right? So it almost isn't even a joke, but it's hysterical the way he presents it and exposes this absurdity that's happening.
I as you were saying that, it's interesting because I think some of the best comedy or some of the best humor is like a knife that cuts through the bullshit. And it's sort of like, I don't know, for whatever reason, it's that moment of clarity, that realization that there is a silly contradiction there, or that none of that actually makes sense, but you've been going along with it. And it's like you either laugh or you cry. And I think that sums up most people's reactions to Ricky Gervais's comedy. Like, you've either got people who are laughing their asses off or who want to go and cry. But it's such a strange phenomenon, don't you think? Like, isn't it weird? Like, isn't humor an odd thing? Like, when you really think about it, like, why is it that, like, we go along with all of this stuff and then somebody can reframe it and highlight to us the contradictions that we've all sort of been going along with, or maybe we haven't. And then when the comedian comes and says it, you're like, oh, like, yeah, thank God in some sense that somebody else gets it. Like, somebody else sees it like this as well. It kind of, it lets you know that you're not alone in the world, in a sense, or something like that. I don't know. It's fascinating.
You're completely right. It's sort of like this comfort it gives you. It sort of makes you feel
Yeah.
like, okay, wow, I'm not the only person that is thinking about these things, and wow, we have people on my side about a certain topic, certain issue, and you're like, yes, you're like rooting for Ricky Gervais. Like, yeah, like fucking tell the world that, like you fight, you know, you're fighting the right fight, and you know, I stand behind you. It's interesting because he's a comedian, but the comedian's job is just, it's so incredibly important because it makes society think about things. It really stimulates. They're more than actually comedians. They're like thought provokers in a way, right? And they're
Agreed.
thought provoking and doing it in a way that makes us laugh. It's like a thought provoking way. It's like something they're doing that's thought provoking, but it's really digestible, and you laugh. It's an incredible form of entertainment.
Correct. So I think it's a form of error correction. I think it's a necessary way of correcting errors within societies. But also on top of that, it's learning to know where the limits are and how to push them and make sure that we don't become too fragile in a sense. But yeah, I really think of comedy or humor as a form of error correction. I think it's a really useful tool in that regard. And also why free speech and things like that are so important, because we need that feedback mechanism. Like, at the end of the day, it is a feedback mechanism. And comedy is like a proving ground for people to go to sort of push and challenge those things. And I think it should be a safe space for that.
There was another comic, which we showed a few episodes back, an older gentleman, and he was another guy that I really like.
George Carlin.
Yeah, George Carlin. He was incredible at exposing so many social issues, and he talks about. I think the one that we mentioned before was, he was talking about how he was essentially exposing the education system. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a good bit.
Yeah, it's a great bit. So again, I feel like a lot of the comedians that we enjoy, or you know, some comedians that, for the most part, one of their jobs is to really get people talking about a lot of these issues and making us aware of these issues, right? And there's no other like format like it, because you won't hear the same sort of thing on the news. The news has an agenda, right? So you're not going to hear a news anchor exposing something like George Carlin does, because George Carlin, he's not bought. He doesn't have to please anybody. He's going to say it how it is, whereas the media is going to, they're after something. Someone's paying them, so they're going to say, even if they do expose something, they're doing it in a way where they're achieving something, benefiting themselves. Whereas comedians, they're not. I mean, well, they are getting a benefit, but they're exposing things, but without that sort of self benefit at the end of it. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know if it's not self-benefit, but I know what you're trying to say. I think that the incentives are slightly different. So the comedian, it's in their best interest to say stuff that's, going to get laughs or get attention. And sometimes it's not all about laughs. Sometimes it could just be about getting attention, and that means pissing people off. So it is in their best interest to say kind of outlandish shit. But in doing so, you can hit on stuff that might actually be truthful or useful in that sense. But with the news anchor, like you mentioned, they're bought, essentially. They're playing to someone else's rules, and they're adhering to those rules. And the crazy thing about that is like, as a society or someone in society, if you're living an experience and then that news anchor goes on to tell you that, like, oh no, that's not true. That's that's not an issue, not at all. Because, they're paid to present a different sort of narrative. Well, then you start to call bullshit on that person, and it undermines your trust in them. And yeah, anyway, I think there's a whole incentive sort of system there. But one thing that I was just thinking about when you were saying all of that is, do you think somebody can be a comedian or be funny if they haven't lived a hard life, or if they haven't lived a tumultuous life, or a life where they've gone through immense struggle? Like I you know what I mean? Like you don't see many spoiled brat sort of, super good looking, in shape kind of people as comedians. They're typically a little bit left of field. They've typically lived a bit of a crazy or hard life in some sense.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because I've seen many podcasts where comedians will make a joke or reference to how all comedians are emotionally broken in some sort of way, or have many psychological issues. I mean, I've heard Tim Dillon. Oh, that's another great comic, Tim Dillon. I've heard Tim Dillon say that. I've heard many comics say that, where comics are sort of people who had struggled, just like you said. I mean, I guess I could say the evidence shows that is part of it, but maybe it's the work ethic. Maybe it's the work ethic. Maybe it's some of these negative experiences that comics have had drives them to sort of be consistent, because it seems all of the big comedians were consistent and hardworking and ate shit for many years. They say usually it takes about 10 years before you're well known, like a making good money as a comic. Minimum, they say minimum 10 years. And so much so that if you didn't hit your 10-year mark and you're blowing up, other comics get pissed off about that. There's been some examples of comics that have surpassed other comics before the 10-year mark. And, you sometimes hear about other comics like not really respecting that. They want everyone to go through the same and eat the same shit that they had to do. So sorry, back to what I was saying. I think that it could be some sort of work ethic thing. Maybe these experiences they had just gives them like this, because you even see like successful business people as well. A lot of times they have like a difficult story as well. The typical story where an immigrant family, moves to Australia or Canada, and their kids grow up in a difficult environment because their parents have no money and they're just starting out. And those kids see what their parents had to go through, and they don't want the same for themselves or their family. So they work their asses off to try and, make a lot of money. And a lot of successful business people have that story. So I think maybe would be the same for comics, but instead of going into business, they went into comedy, maybe because someone, along their path let them know, yo, you're funny, dude. Like you could go on stage and do this shit for real if you wanted to. Also, I feel comics, and I'm not saying this because it's necessarily like what I've observed. It's just what I heard, right? Comics will say that they need sort of that acceptance from other people in order to feel fulfilled, right? So for many comics that have that, they need to make other people laugh in order to feel fulfilled. There's obviously something missing there, right? Something must have happened in their lifetime to get them to be that way. So I think a lot of success stories come from hardships because it just drives people to get out of those hardships and not have to face those hardships anymore. I think it's like a driving factor, one of the main ones.
Yeah, so I completely agree with you. It's because they have problems that aren't yet solved that they develop the skills that they develop in an attempt to solve those problems, right? So if everything was perfect for them, then there would be no reason to do any of these things. And I think that's also true for comedy. I think that it's partly, or largely actually, that the way that they pass the universe or experience the reality with the collective reality, like it doesn't gel with them in some sense, you know? Like it's like, there's all these things that don't make any sense or that sort of seem like they don't need to be this way. So why is everyone okay with it? And then it's sort of that because it isn't it doesn't gel with you, you notice it, and then because you realize that there's a way that you can sort of make it more aware or capitalize on it, you start to turn those things into jokes or try to. But I think fundamentally you have to have problems. And that's what I mean. Like, I don't think that you can have a comic that's had a perfect, like that's had a cruisy life, so to speak. I think all of it, like you have to have a tough life. And I think that's part of the beauty is it's that when it doesn't make sense to you or it doesn't gel like it gels for everybody else. It provides this mechanism for feedback on it. And that's how we error correct essentially. But like it's another funny thing is was an interesting phenomenon about like overweight comedians. And then some of them have got in shape and they're just like markedly less funny when they get in shape. You know, like there's something about somebody who, I don't know, for whatever reason, the physical appearance does play a role. And like, it's harder. I don't know. It's easier to get away with saying some outlandish, crazy shit if you're a little bit of a degenerate or like out of shape or, you know, like you just sort of like, I don't know, it's something. But if somebody's like ultra killing it or like in the best shape ever and like super handsome or good looking or whatever you want to say, if they say something like harsh to you for whatever reason, it seems to be harder to take. Whereas if somebody's overweight and a bit of a degenerate or they treat themselves like shit, they can get away with saying the most outlandish shit. Have you ever observed that phenomenon?
Yeah, dude. It is that way, isn't it? Like Patrice O'Neal.
To a degree, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right though. But Patrice O'Neal, okay, here's what I think with Patrice, because I've heard stories about him going out to a bar and he'll just like chirp girls, right? He'll just chirp and chirp girls until he gets into bed with them. Like he'll just rip them apart, like just throw jokes and jokes and jokes their way. And he'll just continue doing that. And somehow that gets like that, like he's able to achieve getting them into bed with him somehow. Like I've heard other comics say that. And the reason why I think he gets away with it, because he's a really tall, big black guy. Like, what are you going to say to him? What's anyone going to say to him? Like, if you're a friend of one of those girls that he's chirping, like, what the fuck are you going to say to this big, huge black guy? Really? Right? So I think his appearance does play a role in him being able to say whatever the fuck he wants at any time, right?
Well, I agree. And also at the beginning, it's kind of like they can sort of, because he's overweight and the rest of it, they can sort of just be like, oh, he's just, you know, like he's a joker or don't take him seriously, that kind of thing. Whereas if he was like some, I don't know, more alpha kind of dude, you might take that completely differently.
Right.
It's not as threatening as what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Because look at Tim Dillon. Like Tim Dillon isn't a scary looking guy. He's just like a jolly looking guy, to be honest. So it's different for him.
Yeah, but it's also kind of hard to take him seriously because he doesn't really seem to take himself seriously.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you have someone in front of you who really takes themselves seriously or looks like they take themselves seriously, then it's harder for that person to make jokes, in my opinion.
So Tim Dillon doesn't take his health seriously, so he doesn't take himself seriously, so we can laugh at everything he's saying,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. That's right.
That's a hilarious
Like
concept.
serious.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
I've observed that a lot.
Yeah, that is true,
Like
right?
even remember there was that dude Carrot Top,
Yeah, that's
like
a great
super
example.
jacked.
Yeah,
Okay, but if he came out looking like super jacked and like well groomed and stuff, everyone would just be like, "Fuck off, dude." Whereas like he had to come out with like crazy hair and makeup and all the rest and like ridiculously, you know, not like I'm gonna say not he wasn't ridiculously jacked, but he had ridiculous proportionalities. Like it was just stupid. But it was like he took it to an extreme to be comedic about it, if that makes sense.
dude, there was a phase that he did get super jacked actually, and then he kind of went back down again.
Yeah, big time. But I mean, like he's still only a small guy.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. You're right, dude. So it's basically if you can sort of make any part of your appearance like crazy or distinct, where you're portraying you're not taking yourself seriously, because Carrot Top with the hair, the makeup, Tim Dillon with the weight, Joe Rogan, I would say with the clothes. For some reason, like you see a lot of his stand-up and he's wearing like this like huge shirt that's like 3 times bigger than it needs to be. Have you seen like
yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, like he doesn't come out in like his regular, like he doesn't come out showing off his physique in a sense.
No,
he comes out kind of making himself look like a big little kid or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. I guess each comic would have to sort of attempt to do that, because look at he's the main guy from The Nutty Professor. What's his name?
Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, dude. Look at Eddie Murphy's suits in his specials. His suits are outrageous.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Right? Because he's good.
Right.
He's good looking and he's fit, so he had to wear these basically like a clown outfit in a way. These
Correct.
crazy kind of outfits. Yeah. So you're right, dude. I didn't really think about that too much before.
But now we get to the crux of it all, right? This was the jester, remember?
Yeah.
You sort of have to not take the jester seriously in order to like not be triggered or offended by what they say, which creates the space for you to entertain these things that they're saying without getting offended at first, which allows for change to happen.
Yeah.
But you see how they had to dress themselves up as idiots and all this other crazy outfits so that people like lowered their barrier or lowered whatever it was so that they didn't get offended to start with. And it created the space to entertain and explore these different ideas or viewpoints.
What's the guy's name that you sent me recently? Rife or something. He's like next up. That kid who used to be overweight, now he's good looking.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but yeah, he's good.
He's amazing.
He's really good. Yeah, he's funny as, hey?
Oh, damn. Yeah, I saw another clip of him the other day. Yeah, that's it. I
think Matt Rife is his name.
Yeah, I can totally see why he's next up, because he is his crowd work is amazing. I find that the most admirable, to be honest. If you can do really good crowd work, because I feel that is the most difficult thing to do, just off the cuff shit constantly and playing with the crowd, man, that's ballsy. Like you need to be.
Yeah, he's on it. He's well immersed. The thing with him though, the reason he gets away with this like pretty boy style now is because he owns the fact that he wasn't a pretty boy, that he was this fat, awkward, ugly little kid that got bullied and all this other stuff, and then all of a sudden like puberty kicked in. He's like, and then I woke up like this, and he plays on that, but he gets away with it because he used to be that other thing. And he talks about how it was being that way and his insecurities. And so because he owns that, he can then get away with it in the moment. Dude, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. So I just want to say one thing and we can go back to that. I saw a clip of him. He was doing crowd work and there was this 44-year-old girl, a woman in the crowd. And she was there with, I guess, her friends or something. And he started having this back and forth with her, but he was essentially hitting on her the whole time. And it escalated until somehow he got her phone, and he figured out that she has a daughter that's really good looking, and he ended up FaceTiming the daughter, and he was like he was simultaneously hitting on the mom and the daughter at the same time, and it was working. It was the most insane crowd work I've ever seen. Like, both of them wanted to fuck him. I was blown away how he was able to pull it off, like off the cuff.
So
dude.
why is he allowed to get away with that? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's odd, is it not? Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, what is it, right? I mean, he is really good looking, but let's go like if we can look past that, because it's not everything. Like, the looks will only get you so far. He has something else going on. And going back to what you said, because he used to be overweight and awkward, right? But how is he able to sort of portray that part of him still, you think, in order to get people not to take him so seriously?
Well, I think largely one of it is he doesn't give a fuck. I think that's a big thing. He's learned to not give as much of a fuck as other people do. And I think people are drawn to that in certain circumstances. And I think the fact that he is, somewhat famous now as well plays into it, for sure. But I think it's because he fully owns the fact that he was something different and he wasn't always this way. And so, like, he can communicate the hardship or the struggle of what it's like to be not attractive or not the center of attention. You know what I mean? Like, all of those other things. And he has that lived experience. So I think that plays into like why he can now get away with taking advantage of his looks or his fame or whatever else. And people kind of enjoy that. And it's kind of like one for the underdog in some sense. Like, oh, this guy used to be ugly and fat and whatever else. And oh, look at him now. He's killing it. I don't know. There's something weird about that. But I think relatability is a big part of it too.
Yeah, I was thinking back to when we were talking about how there's sort of this, when you're relating to the comic, right? When the comic is discussing an issue that hits home with you and you're sort of like rooting for the comic, you're sort of rooting. So sorry, I almost forgot what I was going to say. You kind of have that when you have inside jokes with your friends, right? Some of like the hardest laughs I've ever had in my life are just inside jokes, and they're not even anything crazy. Like, you just have to say, sometimes it's just like a word that you say and how you say it in your groups of friends, and that's all it takes, and you get a good belly laugh out of that, right? Have you had similar experiences?
Legit. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
And it can just be one word. It's ridiculous. But it's shared experience, I think, ties into that a lot. There's also that aspect of like anonymity in a sense, or not necessarily, not anonymity. I'm trying to think, like you said, it's an inside joke. So it's only like a very select few people understand it, get it, are in on it. And that makes it really special. If that kind of, and that's that, also being able to share meaning around others who don't get the meaning, or like, when it could mean one thing to the greater group, but to you or your buddies, it means something completely different because you've got all this extra context. I think that all plays into it, but it's such a fascinating phenomenon. Like, isn't it so hard to pin down all of this, like, shit, like what makes something funny?
Yeah. And skits. I also find skits really funny. Like the Chappelle Show. I think that was one of the best skit show, comedy shows, or whatever you call it, ever, dude. I can't even mention some of them because, the one of the best ones is where who does he impersonate in the skit? Rick James. The whole Rick James shit.
Rick James is a good one.
And he got that was Charlie hilarious. Murphy. He got Charlie Murphy to sort of narrate it. Charlie Murphy is mad funny, yo. Like, he's funny. Actually. Yeah. The way he tells stories is really funny. And what else does Chappelle have that was really good? The Family.
Got his his skit name? Where he no, I don't remember that one off the top of my head, but the one I was thinking about just then was when he was the head of the KKK, but he was black.
Oh yeah, that's right. And what did he do? He got rid of his wife, or he divorced his wife because she's a N-bomb lover.
Yeah, because she loves him.
Yeah, that is so wild. That is so.
But
crazy.
you see how all of that, the only reason any of that's funny is because of all the contradictions.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Like how yeah, anyway, I just think that's funny. What was the one you were mentioning?
There is this family, and their last name is N-bomb. So he's like, he just showed it is. I think it's kind of like, it looks like a shot in the 50s or in the 50s, I believe, or something. And yeah, their last name is N-bomb. So you can just imagine, what he
shit they went through.
What he could do with that, right? He's like, when he greets them, he just calls them, hey, how you doing? N-bombs, and oh, that's a smelly N-bomb, and it was just insane.
Okay, so but even that word, right, the N-bomb, him using that is funny.
It's hilarious.
Why? Yeah, but if you're a white person, not funny.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying? How intricate and fine the line can be as well.
I know that, but that's like a very unique, special word. It's pretty much the only word white people can't say. Like, what else can't we say, really?
Well, apparently we can't say chink either.
You can't say that? You can't.
Well, you mentioned Tony Hinchcliffe got cancelled, or they tried to cancel his ass.
You're right, but the fact that you can say it on the podcast, like right now, like, oh, you can't say the word chink either, right? Like, we're okay referring to the word still. Like, we can still, sort
100%.
of say it. So it's not.
We're not about to. Go ahead. You go.
So I wouldn't even put it in the same class. It's just like one class under the N-bomb. The N-bomb is like alone for some reason, and words underneath it would be like chink, and another word would be faggot, and maybe retard, depending. I think other racial slurs, and then words that you can say are anything against white people. Like a black guy can say is fucking cracker, and it doesn't even matter.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. But for me, it's weird. Like, I actually, I have no problem saying any of those derogatory terms or any word really. Like, to me, there's like, I have hardly any taboo words, but the N-bomb is one of them.
Yeah, I know that's a heavy one.
Like, I have friends who African American, of higher percentage melanin content in their skin, and for me, yeah, I don't know, it's a weird thing, but it probably is the only word that I'm not a big fan of saying as frequently.
I know, and I wish we could, because like, it's such
I'm saying mine's self-imposed. So I can say nigger. I'm okay with saying the word.
Yeah.
I choose not to use it as often, only because I have friends who don't have a problem with it being said, but I understand that in the greater scheme of things, it can be used as a very divisive and derogatory term, and there's a lot of sort of proximal pain with it for them, if that makes sense. And because I care and whatever about them, then that is. Whereas like with chink and stuff like that, I don't see the proximal pain with the word.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't see it being as much of a thing, but that could just be because of my exposure and biases.
Yeah, that's true. There is sort of this underlying proximal pain with the N-bomb still kind of lurking for some reason, even though.
But is that because we're empath to the African Americans, or to African people in that regard?
I don't know. I don't even know how this really came about, because we're talking about, because everyone had slaves. Like, if we go back in time, slaves were a common thing. And actually, African Americans had other African American slaves before white people had African American slaves as well, right? So they were enslaving their own people before white people enslaved them too. So it's not necessarily a white person thing. It's a world thing. The world has been enslaving other cultures.
It's a human problem.
It's a human, and it's still occurring.
It's a human problem,
yeah,
for sure.
It's a human problem. So the fact that just that one word is associated with this sort of proximal pain with one culture, and I don't mean culture like, I mean with one skin tone, essentially, right? It's interesting. It's interesting because every culture has suffered, in some time frame or another, has gone through slavery, and a lot of cultures are still going through it. So it's kind of fascinating.
Well, and we've all gone through pain in some way, shape, or form or another. Like, no one's isolated from that. No one's isolated from discomfort or challenge. Now, it's a really interesting phenomena. Like, again, like I said, like, for whatever reason, that's probably one of the only words that I'm mindful of using. And it's a weird decision that I've made inside myself. Like, I don't feel beholden in any other space to not say certain words. Like, I'll say Jew, or like we spoke chink. You could go any number of racial terms. Slant eye. I feel perfectly fine saying shit about slant eye, because when I smile, my eyes go mad slanty. So I take that as a derogatory term towards myself. Okay. But it's, I don't know. It's weird. It's the only word.
Theo Vaughn has a really good bit about this. I'm not even sure if it's a bit, but it's something he said on his podcast. People are getting a little bit I think people got upset with him because he was sort of talking about African Americans in a certain way. And he had to remind people, like, yo, listen, like, when I was growing up, I was in the same position they were. Like, everybody was stealing from us. Like, it wasn't just white people taking from black people. No, it was the man taking from white people and black people. Like, we live together. We're coming from the same place. Like, my neighbor is black and we're both poor. It's the man that's taking from us. It's not me because I'm white taking from that. It's like the system, right? And he was pointing.
Yeah, the haves versus the have-nots.
Yeah, he's pointing the finger like at the haves, and that's sort of a good point, because it's not really like white versus black. It's more haves versus have-nots. That's the issue.
Correct. There's more or less useful ways of framing it, and white versus black is not as useful. Haves versus have-nots, definitely, or oppressors versus oppressed is another way of thinking about it too. But he's right. Like he is a very funny person. Just on a side note, but like his unique life experience. Yeah, but that's what it is. He went through that immense struggle. Like, he grew up in poverty, guy. Like, he's full redneck retard, so to speak, you know? And he's transcended. He's been able to transcend that. But the reason he's been able to transcend it is because he owned it. Like, he really is like, God damn, I am, full retard in a sense. But like, unless I acknowledge that, I'm not going to get any better. And so he's been able to develop it.
He said, ferrets are the limousines of rats.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Like, how does he come up with that shit? Like, how does he? And it's constant with him. If you watch his podcast, it's one thing after another after another. It's constant. Like, how does that guy's brain fire? Like, what is going on with those neural connections to come up with these crazy ideas so frequently? It's amazing.
Yeah, it's his environment and where he grew up with all the problems that he had. That's literally it. It biased him towards seeing and interpreting the world and connections within the world in certain ways. So he's one of the few people who can make a connection between ferrets, rats, and limousines, dog. Like, that's a sick connection to be able to make. He made that connection.
Yeah, I didn't even mean to say that he has these crazy thoughts. I think he's actually quite intelligent, and he says like kind of funny things, but they're intelligent the way he puts them together. So it's not actually all that crazy, but just sounds funny.
I didn't think we'd get to intelligence from a podcast about comedy and humor, but let's just have a quick discussion about intelligence, right? Because you just mentioned he is intelligent. Now, I think he's intelligent as well, but I don't think that would be a common perception of Theo Von. I don't think many people would look at Theo and be like, that dude's intelligent. You know, he's got that mullet, all the rest. Anyway, what is intelligence? So, you know, there isn't a consensus on this. Like, no one agrees on what intelligence really is. Everyone sort of uses the term, but they don't really have a clear definition in place. Now, one of the definitions that I like and I found to be very useful is intelligence is the ability to solve a problem or get an outcome via many different strategies or many different ways. There is an outcome you want. There's a problem space in front of you. You know, being able to go one path, yeah, you know, you can solve that problem. But intelligence is being able to solve it through many different ways. So be able to get to the same place, but through many different destinations, so to speak, or many different paths. Does that kind of make sense?
Kinda. Sorry, Ruse, can you try and elaborate a little bit more on that? It kind of lost me a little bit with that one, to be honest.
Okay, so intelligence, right?
Yes.
Let's start with what your current understanding of it is. Like, how might you define intelligence? Because we use the term.
Yeah.
Isn't it hard?
I couldn't.
Right?
I couldn't explain it, to be honest. I
Okay.
don't know, because I know that school, like the way the school system is ran, is flawed, right? Like doing exams, you learn a whole bunch of shit, you do a test, and you forget it. Learn a whole bunch of other shit, do the test, and you forget it. So if we were to measure someone's, a score, their average, we could say, oh wow, Rubes has a 95% average. He's really intelligent. But just because you were able to learn a whole bunch of information really quickly and then do well in the exam doesn't really indicate that you're really intelligent per se. You're just
100%
good at this one line of thing, the school system.
So you just nailed. That's just exactly what I was getting at. Okay. So typically, like the way people think about intelligence or whatever is like, oh, you did good on this test, you're intelligent. Oh, you did good at school, you're intelligent. Oh, you can do this thing, you're intelligent. But like you just said, with school, you can game that, right? So you can just learn, like you can just memorize all of the answers or all of the things for that test and then get a really good mark. Does that make you intelligent? And that's why I agree with you. I don't think it does. I don't think that makes you intelligent. What that shows you, though, is that you've been able to sort of remember or memorize a path from here to there to get that outcome, okay? But like I said, the definition of intelligence that I've found to be useful and that I like to use is the ability to solve a problem through many different paths or get to an outcome through many different ways, okay? And so that your example of memorizing all of the stuff for the test, that's a path. You've just learned a path, which is why I don't think that's intelligence, right? Or the full instantiation of it. Where if you learn the meta concepts that allow you to, so you don't have to memorize that path, but given a problem space, you can find many paths to get to where you want to get to.
Okay.
Or to solve it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, now it does. Yeah, now I'm understanding. Okay. Taking many different paths to sort of solve the problem. I'm trying to
So
think
if you just memorize a path, that's like memorizing all the stuff for your test.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas instead of memorizing all the stuff for the test, like understand the meta concepts, so that no matter what is presented in front of you, you have the tools or the cognitive ability to solve those problems.
Right. So if another problem is presented to you, you have the necessary tools to sort of attack this problem and solve it. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah. Right. So what I'm getting at is like, if we take the traditional approach, which is you have a test and you've memorized all the stuff for the test, you can solve the test, okay? But then what happens if they change 5 questions in the test?
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah. I remember I had a physics class in university, And I didn't take math seriously in high school. I didn't take high school seriously at all. So once I got to university, I had to bust my ass to really learn math. And luckily my university had a math help center, and I would literally spend 8 hours a day for like 3 weeks leading up to an exam to try and learn all of this shit, right? And I found through repetition and repetition and repetition of solving these math problems, I was then able to solve other math problems just based on what I learned in that math help center. Um, but then if you were to ask me now, I have no idea how to solve any of those math problems I was solving before because I forgot everything that I learned. So it was sort of like a short-lived thing, right? I was able to learn these tools and then apply the tools I learned to new problems on the math exam, but that was it. So is that intelligence? Probably not, dude. Right?
Well, no. So in a way, it is, right? Because it helps you to solve your thing. Is it the full instantiation of it? I don't think so. So the thing to say there is like, what are the meta concepts that allow you to, given a problem in front of you, be able to solve that problem or think through how to solve that problem? I think that's intelligence. Do you know what I mean? So like now, if you had a physics question in front of you, you might not just sit there and be like, oh, I don't know how to solve this. You could utilize many other tools to figure a way to solve it. So I think that's intelligence.
Right. That's true. That's true. Actually, I do enjoy learning new things. And when I don't know how to do something, I will spend lots and lots of time trying to figure out how to do it. Actually, the other day, have you heard of stable diffusion? Like the
Yes.
Okay. So I heard that in order to run a local stable diffusion on a computer, you need a pretty good video card, right? And I have the GTX, I have the NVIDIA GTX 1660 Ti. So if anyone listening knows if that one works for the stable diffusion, please let us know in the comments, because I haven't been able to successfully get it working yet, but I just started. And anyway, so I had to download all of these, a bunch of files, some files from I think it was called Hugging Faces, a website that I had to download shit from.
Just Hugging Face.
Then I had to download shit from
Hugging Face.
from GitHub, right? Then I had to download Python, and I had to download, I can't remember what the fourth thing was, but I've never used any of these things before. So I had to go and learn how to do these things. And then suddenly I'm writing code. Like I'm hitting Windows R to run, and then typing in CMD, and then like a window pops up, and I have to like write code of what I want to activate and what I want to change. And suddenly like I'm learning how to code, and it was crazy. But anyways, I got the stable diffusion almost working. I got it down to the very last step. However, I was having a problem with the output of the code, because the code says that there's this part of the code where it says no half or something. I don't even necessarily know what that means, but you need to change the code of the program in order to get it to work if you don't have a sufficient graphics card. And I think that might be my problem. Even though my graphics card is good, I don't think it's at the level it needs to be. So I'm trying to like go through all this code and change it. And I haven't solved it yet, but this problem just happened yesterday. So I'm on it. I'm utilizing ChatGPT actually to try and help me figure out how I'm able to change the code in order for it to process images on my computer now. So I had some experience. I almost had experience being intelligent, but not until I achieved that last step will I be intelligent, I feel like.
Well, no. So this hits on it, right? That is intelligence, but all intelligence is collective intelligence. How about that? So it doesn't exist in isolation. It's collective. It all is collective. So, and you cannot have intelligence without a problem, right? Because there is no need to have intelligence without problems. So see how with this problem, like you had a problem that you wanted to use it locally. And then because you had that problem, you had to go through and try and solve all these different things. And you didn't just do that in isolation. Like none of that was just located within your brain. You had to start outsourcing and utilizing information and knowledge from other areas. And so this is this other thing, which is, no intelligence. Oh, sorry. All intelligence is collective intelligence. And you have to have a problem, or there has to be a problem space. Isn't that a freaky thing?
It is freaky. So I'm wondering, how are we able to identify that Theo Von is intelligent? Like, we both agree he's intelligent, and he does.
Oh, okay. So tie it back to Theo. Okay, so when I said intelligence is the ability to get to an outcome through many different paths, or many different means, or many different ways, or solve a problem through many different mechanisms or many different paths, Theo possesses a unique ability to solve problems through many different paths. That's why I think he's intelligent. Like, he's able to connect dots that aren't the traditional, like it's not the traditional path. He's able to show a different path. And that's like, that to me highlights his intelligence. So like with him saying ferrets are the limousines of rats, like, that to me is hilarious, but it also highlights an intelligence. He's like, he's made an analogy, or like, that we can all understand to some degree, and we all find that funny. But like, I haven't heard someone else say that before, so that's a new path to a similar sort of outcome. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, I feel like he only has new paths, honestly.
Precisely.
So I asked ChatGPT a very simple question. I asked, who is the most prolific comedian of our time? I want you to try and guess. It gave me 5. I want you to just go ahead and name a couple of guys that you think would be in the top 5 most prolific comedians of our time. Of what, like, what ChatGPT said.
I'm going to say
ChatGPT at all.
Ricky Gervais. Ricky Gervais for sure. Like Dave Chappelle would have to be in there. Who else? Oh, that's a good question. Robin Williams. Is it Robin Williams? Yeah, Robin Williams. I'm gonna take too long for the rest of those, but they're my first 3.
Dude, only one of those made the list. Dave Chappelle.
Okay.
And
what's the list?
Dave Chappelle was number 3. Guy, I was blown away when I read number 1. Jerry Seinfeld.
Yay. That is just meh.
Isn't that surprising?
Yeah, but no, it's not. It is and it isn't. It's also subjective, but like, guys, Jerry Seinfeld? No way.
That's what pussy ass ChatGPT said. Oh, well, comedy is subjective. Correct. So, fuck, ChatGPT is a pussy, man. To be honest, you know what I'm saying?
It's getting, absolutely. It's getting way harder to use as well. It's starting to suck a lot because of the censorship. See, this other crap. Like, let's go through this list so we get more angry.
Number 2, Kevin Hart. I mean,
these people paid to be here.
He's a huge actor. Like, he makes a lot of money. He's a huge, he's huge in that way. But prolific?
Yeah. Well, he sells out stadiums for sure. But
yeah. All right, that's true.
Yeah, but I know, but it's not like because it's great comedy.
Yeah. So Dave Chappelle, number 3. All right.
Yeah, I can vibe with that.
Number 4 is Amy Schumer.
Yes. We have to get our diversity card up, so let's include a woman.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, ChatGPT is becoming such a pussy, man. What the fuck? Number 5 actually pissed me off more than any of them. Trevor Noah from The Daily Show.
What?
I know.
His life is hilarious, but beyond that, what?
Like, how is he a prolific comedian? I don't get it.
Yeah, no, I don't get it either. I think people laugh at him, but not because he's like trying to be funny.
So here's what it says. Trevor Noah has become one of the most recognizable and influential comedians in the world. His sharp wit, political commentary, and storytelling abilities have garnered him a large following and critical acclaim.
Yeah. See, I think this is also another problem with this kind of stuff. Is like critical acclaim from like the mainstream media. So then they're going to put out content on him, and then it's going to get used to train these models, and then it's going to bias what they actually think, as opposed to like, what comedians have really pushed the bounds. Like who's prolific in that sense. Like, yeah, that's hilarious. It's a good insight. Like it actually tells you a lot. As long as you don't blindly believe it, it tells you a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you. Ricky Gervais should have been on that list 100%.
100. Yeah, but he won't be because he's challenging and he pushes back on the rest of the bullshit. So they're not going to include him in that. They don't want to give him any airtime.
Yeah, that's true.
Take away the oxygen so the fire can't burn. Now, I did a couple of things with this. So I went through and we did a little. I also asked ChatGPT, so get ready for bias. A few things about comedy. So there's many different theories as to what makes something funny or what is involved in something being funny, and it's quite interesting. There's quite a bit of overlap, but I must admit I bias towards certain types of comedy, like you, which is like satire, parody, wit and sarcasm, dark humor, observational comedy, and truth in the timing and delivery. So I always find that that's the most enjoyable for me. Like I'm not a big fan of like the dad jokes and stuff like that. I don't get a big kick out of them, like those weird ones. Some people can't even help it. Like you say a word and then they have to say a dad joke. It's like a nervous reaction kind of thing. Anyway. So I asked a couple of questions and I just thought I could read a little bit of what was said just because I think it's interesting.
Yeah, fine, guy.
So I went through and I was like, I want to understand and develop an intuition for humor, comedy. It's like, what are these things and how do they work? And so it comes up with like incongruity theory. This is one of the most accepted theories of humor. It suggests that people find something funny when there's a conflict between what they expect and what actually happens. The surprise element in a joke or a comic situation often comes from this incongruity. A classic example would be a joke's punchline, which often defies our expectations in a surprising and unusual way. So I thought that was interesting. Superiority theory. This theory posits that people laugh at the misfortunes or mistakes of others because it makes them feel superior in some way. This is often seen in slapstick comedy, where characters frequently find themselves in unfortunate situations. Relief theory. According to this theory, humor acts as a form of relief from tension or stress. The idea is that laughter functions as a safety valve, releasing nervous energy that has been pent up. This is why people sometimes laugh in stressful or awkward situations. Timing. It was only two or three more. So timing. In comedy, timing is everything. Knowing when to deliver a punchline, pause for effect, or react to a situation can make or break a joke. Comedic timing often involves instinctively understanding the rhythm of a joke and the audience's anticipation. Social context. Humor often relies on shared knowledge and cultural references. A joke that is hilarious to a group of friends might fall flat with a stranger who doesn't share the same background or experiences. And then we have wordplay, puns, malpropositions, double entendres, and other forms of linguistic gymnastics often form the basis of humor. The unexpected use of language can surprise and delight, creating amusement. Absurdity. Comedy often involves situations that are so outlandish or ridiculous that they're funny. This can be seen in many forms of comedy, from farces to surreal humor. And then last one, tragedy plus time. It's often said that comedy is tragedy plus time. This refers to the idea that situations that are initially distressing or tragic can become funny when enough time has passed.
Yeah, that's when the comics say, "Oh, was it too soon? Was it too soon?" In my
Correct.
belief, it's almost never too soon. You could almost say a joke
Correct.
pretty much right away. I find. Ricky Gervais actually has a rule with his family, and I heard him talk about this. If you think of something that is funny, you have to say it immediately. Don't hold anything back. It doesn't matter where we are, who we're with, what we're doing. If you have something funny to say, you say it. It's your obligation to do so. To sort of,
I love that rule.
Yeah, same. And I've tried.
That is a sick rule.
I've tried living by that rule, dude, and it's fun.
It's
fun as fuck, dude.
I love that. I've never heard that. That is a fantastic thing. I'm going to use that from now on. That is fucking awesome.
We should. Like, we should be that way. Everything, anytime we think we can crack a joke about something to make ourselves laugh or the people around us, do it. Like, do it. It's such a great way to deal with shit too. Like
100% error correction. Way better error correction. I love that. That is a fucking good one.
Yeah.
So just quickly, so with that, the incongruity theory suggests that people find something funny when there's a conflict between what they expect and what actually happens. Superiority theory that posits people laugh at misfortunes or mistakes of others because it makes them feel superior. And the relief one is humor acts as a form of relief from tension or stress. The idea that laughter functions as a safety valve, releasing nervous energy. Like, do you find that shit? I find that funny as fuck.
That is funny as fuck.
The theories of humor are funny.
Yeah, the theories of that. I agree. They're mad funny. And I'm understanding all of the theories that you read, except for one. One is really difficult to explain, and it's timing. Because timing is so important in comedy. And I understand why timing is funny, but how do you explain it? Like, how do you achieve good timing? And what is good timing? How do you know what I mean? Like, it's a concept I can't wrap my head around, but I know it when I see it, but I can't wrap my head around it.
So the way I see it, timing, it matters because you have to have the necessary inputs ready for something to work. You have to have enough context built and developed for something to be relevant or for something to make sense. So timing is like the order of procedure. So, certain information has to be exposed before you can have a punchline or something like that. So I think it would just be, think of it in terms of ordering, how you present and deliver. And then on top of that, with the timing, it's like letting people sit in anticipation where their minds are trying to predict what you're going to say without saying anything helps to build that. And so if you don't let people have an adequate amount of that, you don't give them sufficient context or enough priming for it, then it won't work. But if you give them too much, then they'll collapse on the answer or collapse on the thing before you say it, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it does make sense. I feel like this is like a talent.
Yeah. Well, timing is like it's a very nuanced skill, and it's very situational and contextual. And it's a balance between knowing how much information to give, how, abstract to make things or how clear to make things. And I think a lot of that, the reason it's so hard to explain is because it's a dance that you do with the audience and the crowd.
Isn't laughing such a strange physiological response to something? Like the actual act of
the chuckle.
Of laughing, yeah. Like actually laughing. Like it's such an interesting physiological response that feels so good and it's contagious. And it's something that we, as like friends and family, we try and achieve at get-togethers, make each other laugh. We get that.
Well, some people do, definitely.
Yeah, that's true. Some people do, yeah.
Other people's prerogative is to just be fucking morbidly depressed and like misery loves company, like woe is me and everything sucks, blah blah blah.
That's true.
But then my favorite thing is to laugh at them fuckers.
Yeah,
I'm
same. You miserable fuck. I'm superior than you.
Yeah, that's one way for sure.
Good.
But no, honestly, I always found it's even like this is why I like Cat Williams. Cat Williams has a good one. He like, when motherfuckers look at you with that stomach bug virus face, and he's like the haters. That's what he's talking about. And they got that stomach bug virus face, and he goes, you got to get your laughs off them, and it's just like that you being you is doing something to fuck with them, and that can be funny.
Yeah,
Get your laughs.
it's true. It's true. Like
where you go?
no, I was just gonna say, like, it's funny how we hear something, right? It could be any one of those styles of comedy that you just went through, and something connects in our brains, and we have this physiological response to that. I just kind of looked like a insane person there, but you know what I mean. It's hard to
I do.
It's hard to fake laugh, but
so what you just said is interesting though. So there is this strange thing where we're a certain entanglement, right? So we've got all these different interconnections that make us us, and you can think of that as certain shapes or different, like I like to think of it as like puzzles and puzzle pieces. And comedy or humor is like this transmission of a certain amount of information or a puzzle piece that when it comes in contact with all your puzzle pieces kind of collapses into a state that is that laugh or that chuckle. And it's just like it's that physiological response. But it's interesting how beneficial it is, and how even just smiling, right? So not even being necessarily happy, but just smiling, because you typically smile when you're happy. If you get yourself to smile, you still produce the same sort of chemical cocktail that would otherwise be produced when you were happy. So you can trick yourself into being happy just by smiling. Right? Like you can smile and you can then start to feel happier. You don't need to feel happy to smile, but it's because we typically are happy when we smile that you can then hack it, if that makes sense.
yeah, no, that does make sense. I don't know why I'm stuck on this laughing thing. Like, laughing is so interesting suddenly. Like it just the act of just laughing, it's strange, right? Like, imagine you were an alien and you came to our planet and you were observing humans, and then you observed humans at a comedy show, and they're all just like making like this weird gesture and this weird sound and having a great time. You'd be like, yo, what the fuck is going on over here? You know what I mean? Like it's a really interesting thing that we as humans get to benefit from. Like, laughing is amazing.
100%. It's so weird, but like you just said, it's such a weird thing.
Yeah.
Like, imagine no context, like not really knowing anything about humans, and then you're like, oh, look at all these things doing all these different things. You're like, wait, one of the things they do is they go to these places and they just they do this oscillation within their body. Like, that is odd. Sometimes they do it so much that this fluid substance comes out of their eyes. Like,
yeah.
Like, what?
Exactly.
It is. It's an incredibly weird use of time when you think about it.
Yeah, exactly. And even when I've seen like this documentary style kind of thing. It was showing African tribe, and the one tribesman he just farts, like, and they all laugh. Another guy farts, and they're all just laughing, right? Because farts are hilarious. Like, I love farting. When I hear farts, I laugh too. But something so simple, it doesn't matter what culture you're from. You could be from an African tribe, right? It has no connection to, society the way we do. They're in their own tribe, but yeah, they just fart and they all laugh about it. It's amazing. It's like,
yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, it's like this. It's like one of the most human things. And what other physiological responses do we have that's like, I mean, I guess like sneezing or coughing.
Burping.
Oh yeah, burping, yeah.
Sneezing's not okay, but it's interesting because sneezing's not typically funny because it's like associated with, if you sneeze, you're probably going to die. Like, that's why people used to say bless you. Because it's like if you sneezed,
Yeah.
right, someone would say bless you because they're like, oh, you're probably just going to die. So like, like bless you because you're probably dead. Like you're probably just about to die.
Oh, I thought they said it because there's spirits coming out of you each time you sneeze.
Maybe, but my understanding from what I read about this, which but yeah, obviously it's only a sample of whatever's out there on this whole subject, but it was something to do with like back in the day when there was like the Black Death and all those plagues and shit. It started to become a thing because people that like if you sneezed, you were pretty much doomed to die. Like if you got sick, you died essentially back in the day, and that's where bless you arose from, to my understanding. I could be completely wrong about it. I like the spirit one. That's funny.
Yeah, I don't know where I heard that, but yeah. Laughing at
Bible was it a Bible camp?
No, fuck that. No, definitely was not. It was not that. So what Ruben's getting at is that so I live in Colombia, and in South America, there are a lot of Bible thumpers. In Colombia, I would say most people are at least I would say super down with God, and I would say a very high percentage of people are like hardcore about the Bible. So I've been exposed to lots of that here.
But it's an older version, yeah. Like they're still very much into specific readings of the Bible, yeah.
Yeah, they're quite radical. I would say it's quite radical, and they say that it needs to be it's black or white, and that's it. You either are or you aren't. Basically, you're either walking in the path of God or you're with the devil. There's like those two extremes. And whereas in our culture, like you can be down with the Bible, but you're not living and breathing it 24/7. It could be like an hour of your day if you like, or a couple hours a week if you like. But here in Colombia, it's people live and breathe it, and it's intense for a foreigner. For me, it's super intense. Yeah.
So, quick question, two things. So, do you think they're laughing a lot in their personal lives, the people who are living by the Bible?
Less.
Like, is there a lot of room for comedy and humor in the Bible?
I don't know. That's a great question. I would say my immediate response is to say less from my experiences, because how funny can the Bible be? I mean, here's the thing. I from what I've observed, let's say we're at a restaurant, right? And someone's eating, and like food falls off their fork and onto their shirt, and they dirty their shirt. That's funny, you know what I mean? Like that, like they'll laugh at that. I think they'll laugh at like things that they notice that kind of is outside of like the norm. Not to say like that's outside, but something weird happens, and they witness one of their buddies maybe tripping or something. But like jokes per se, I haven't really heard them say jokes, no, to be honest.
So I think we might have just stumbled across something that's very interesting. There has to be a space for comedy. And I think the space for comedy arises within the acknowledgement that things aren't perfect and that they can't be perfect. But with the Bible, God made and did everything. And so according to him, it's all perfect, if that makes sense. So there's less room for like it's all perfect in God's eyes or sense. And if there isn't, then it's God's plan. Like if this didn't go how you want, that's part of God. Like there's always an explanation, so to speak, and it's always to do with God. Whereas for comedy to exist, you can't always have that explanation. You know what I mean? Like if there's just one sole thing that can explain everything, well then that's what explains it all. Whereas in order for comedy to be a thing, you can't always have that one explanation. I don't know. I know what I want to say. This is hard to communicate.
I know.
Does that kind of make some sense?
Yeah. I can elaborate a little bit actually. from what I've observed. So they're not allowed to make jokes about the Bible. Like God is never like funny, like the Bible readings are never funny. Nothing that's ever happened to Jesus is funny. They never joke about that at all. Like that's definitely not okay to joke about any of that. And the only things I've ever seen them laugh about is like what I told you, is when they see something funny happen to somebody that's, more innocent. Like, you know, they trip over their own feet, but they didn't fall. They just kind of, oops, and regain their step. Like they'll laugh
Yeah.
at something like that. But you can never make it.
So, okay, one sec. Okay, so when they do that, do they go, "Oh, God just tripped me up," or do they like put it down to their own? You see what I'm saying? Like, do they put that down to their own sort of misstep, so to speak, in that circumstance? Or are there people in that case who are like, "Oh, God wanted me to notice something"?
So they do say like, "Oh, like God saved you. You didn't fall and hurt yourself because God saved you." Yeah, that's what they say. Because here in Spanish, it's Dios te guardó. That's what they say, and that I think it means like, yeah, like God saved you, and that's their response, and everything is always it's always thanks to God. So yeah, but like a joke, like, I mean, I wouldn't be able to say any of my jokes really to any of them, like at any time, right? Like only with like my family here, but like my wife's Bible reading friends, yeah, they wouldn't. I mean, I wouldn't even think about it because I just know that it's not okay to make certain jokes. So actually, I was so fuck. A few of them came over today, right? And I was working, and I had my headphones on, and they were listening to a what's it called? They are part of this group where they have. It's not a priest. It's a very complicated situation because they don't consider themselves religious, right? Like they're not religious. They're just down with the Bible because they think their religious institution is sinful, and being part of any sort of religious institution is sinning. However, submitting to God and following the Bible is, that's a way of life for them, right? So today they were in their group, and they had a video chat going, and one of the people in their group was doing some Bible readings, right? And I was working on my computer and I had my headphones in, and I got up to talk with them as soon as it was over, and one of the guys he said, "Oh, were you listening to the Bible study?" And I laughed, right? Because I thought he knew that I wasn't, and he kind of looked at me like strangely because I laughed. And I'm like, "Oh, I thought you were."
Yeah, laugh at God.
Yeah, I'm like, I thought you were joking. I thought you were making a wise ass crack because you knew I wasn't listening, right? And he's like, "No, I would never joke about that. Like that's not a joke I would make." And I'm like, "Okay, that's all right. Yeah, I got you." So, yeah, I think that answers your question, right?
Yeah, it's constrained. Like there isn't as much space for humor and comedy because everything seems to be figured out. Like they've got their manual, which is the Bible, and it's all explained under God. You can find any passage or any verse from the Bible to explain anything. And so for them, there are no mysteries anymore, or there's no problems really to solve. It's all solved within the Bible, if that kind of makes sense. And so because of that, you can't push against it. You can't there isn't the space for comedy or jokes, or as much space anyway.
I guarantee you, Jesus was a mad good stand-up comedian. I bet you he was the funniest guy in the room, dude. Yo, remember the time he turned water to wine and they all got fucked up at that party? Dude, I bet you he was killing it on stage, bro. He was ahead of his time. He was just smarter than everybody else. Yo. You know those barrels of water we told everybody about? Yo, they really got wine in them. Watch this trick. Getting the
Yeah.
party started,
Can
guy.
you imagine? Can you imagine though the first time he said that that's what he's going to do? Who laughed? Like everybody would have laughed at him.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I'm going to turn this from this into wine. Everybody would be like, "Bah!" As if, bro, as if you're going to do that. You know? Like I get, yeah. Anyway, I think that's an interesting thing. So I wonder if there's any work done on your experience of humor or how often you laugh or experience that sort of that physiological response, that laughter, and being religious.
Okay.
My wife, she laughs a lot. Like we laugh a lot together all the time, and she sometimes laughs at my jokes, but then other times it's like, yo, like that was too much. But I usually get that response from most of my family, not from my friends though. Like you guys like my jokes, but uh,
Push to the limit, guy.
yeah. But I'm confused now because I noticed her laughing like a lot with me, but like, what are we laughing at? I'm having a hard time nailing it.
So maybe she's just laughing at you, guy.
Yeah, she's probably just laughing at me. This fucking idiot.
Guy, okay, well, okay. Hold up. We could go back to this dog. Do you think that maybe part of her laughter is the following? It is the relief theory. According to this theory, humor acts as a form of relief from tension or stress. The idea is that laughter functions as a safety valve, releasing nervous energy that has pent up. This is why sometimes people laugh in stressful or awkward situations. Do you think she just laughs because it's just awkward?
Fuck, guy, maybe. I'm gonna be hyper analyzing each and every laughter from now on to see what's occurring here.
No, don't hyperanalyze. Okay, but do you think that could explain some of it? It's just like a slight language barrier. She's just like, this is nervous tension.
Yeah, I think
She's
so.
like, oh fuck, I don't know what Daniel say again. I just laugh.
Yeah, you're probably right, dude. You're probably right. And going back to what I said before, like now I'm realizing that most of the things that they're laughing about is just laughing at like funny things that people do, not necessarily what they say.
Yeah. It probably is that relief valve. Like I think that's actually a really interesting sort of lens to think about it through.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to wrap up with, Guy? I think we've covered comedy to a good degree. That was fun.
Yeah, that was fun. I just want to say one more thing that's very important to learn to laugh at yourself. I think that's before we got into the Bible talk. That's what I wanted to say, I believe. Yeah, I think we talked about this a little bit last week, but a superpower is being able to laugh at yourself. And when you hear a joke that's about you, you should laugh at it. It's funny. If you laugh at every other joke that the comedian's saying, and you don't laugh at the joke when it gets to you, and you get upset, that's on you.
Yeah, you're the problem, 100%. But it's also a sign that says if you don't laugh at it, if you get offended by it, it's telling you that you are the one that has a problem, not anybody else, but you. So that's a good indication that there's something there you could deal with. That's an error correction. You could correct that error, and then you become more and more robust and bulletproof against all of the other shit. Because if you can laugh at those things that used to challenge you, then no one can fuck with you. No one can offend you. No one can wreck your day. So I I think that's a great superpower to develop, Guy. Absolutely.
Please do not like this video. Please do not subscribe. Don't comment. Don't share the video with any of your friends and family. And thanks for watching.
Peace. Love you, Guy.
Peace, bro. Love you too.